Welcome to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based photographer Tavishima Ayede. In the last recording, that's the one that I made before the rant, we looked into qualities and attributes to be good at sales. In summary, whatever personal and professional qualities that you've been exposed to in the past by your mentor or whatever professional training that you've gone through is going to be handy, is going to come in handy when we talk about sales as well. But the most important personal attribute that you need to be good at sales is to always predict and project growth. That's because personal selling is going to be hard and you are going to meet a lot of rejection along the way. So you need to have the spine and the fortitude to be able to face challenges head on. That's what will make you stand up every day and keep on selling, even though things don't seem to be going according to plan. You're getting a bunch of no's and people are ghosting you. If you always have good outcomes in mind, then you're going to always be able to sell. Now, take this from me because it's something that I see regularly, especially after we finish bridal fairs. So, a bunch of vendors, we all go in there, you get maybe 20 leads, and then after about 2 or 3 weeks, the average vendor says, you know what, screw this, it's not working, these people are not serious, and they swear off the whole experience. Bridal fairs are crap because these people are not serious. So that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about. If you don't always project good outcomes, then eventually you hit the wall where you say, just sod it, I'm not doing this anymore. So today we're going to talk about something that is related, and that is rejection. I want to expose you guys to the proper perspectives for dealing with rejection. Because with the example that I just gave about bridal fairs, and outside of that, in whatever circumstances where you meet the client, you go over to their office or they come over to yours, you're usually going to get three responses. You're going to get a no, or you're going to get people ghosting you, or you're going to get a yes. Obviously, if you get a yes, then that's good, all is well. But in the most likely thing that's going to happen is that you're going to get a no, or you're going to get people avoiding you or ghosting you. Now, when I say avoidance, I'm also including situations where people say things like, I need a bit more time. Let me speak to my husband. Let me speak to mommy, daddy. Let me speak to my cousin, uh, you know, whatever it is. Now, whenever people say yes or no, it's these are more active responses from the client, and obviously these are the easiest to deal with, or rather the best to deal with, because they're being upfront with us. And when people avoid or ghost, they're being very passive, and that can be confusing and sometimes heartbreaking for a number of vendors. But this is the proper perspective, in my own opinion, for you to have when it comes to dealing with rejection. In the future, I'm going to run through a couple of techniques or frameworks that you can use to work through objections that you get from customers, from our brides and grooms. But the main thing to bear in mind whenever you run up against rejection, when you have people saying no, or you have people avoiding or ghosting, is to realize that there is a mismatch with the wants, the needs, with the money, or with the urgency. For those of you who've been listening for a while, you remember that I call this a failure of qualification. So, what is the point of qualification? The aim of qualification is a question driven process, and the whole idea of qualification is to make sure that you're speaking to the right kind of buyer. You're speaking to someone who is most likely to buy, and you don't waste time with anyone who isn't likely to buy. So that's the whole point of qualification. We always want to make sure that we're speaking with properly qualified buyers. So you'll find that a lot of the time when people say no or they ghost, is because they're not properly qualified. You didn't go through your question process, or you didn't go through your questioning process, or your template, or whatever it is you have, to make sure that there's a legitimate want there or a need, that they can afford your service, or that there's any sense of urgency behind it. So that's the right attitude to take. So you'll find that whenever you run up on all this, if you haven't properly qualified the client and you run through your process, you'll either be able to get to the bottom of the substantial excuse me, you'll be able to get to the bottom of the substantial issue and you'll be able to address it. For instance, if you run through the whole thing and you find out that the leg of the money or the budget is a squeaky wheel, then you know how you're going to address it. If you're going to come up with flexible payment terms or if you're going to offer a discount or whatever. By the way, discounts, I really don't like discounts, but I guess it's also something viable in your toolkit that you can use to rescue the situation, especially for those of you who believe in padding the price upfront so that you have room for negotiation. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. So the bottom line is when you run through your qualification process, you'll find out what it is that is the problem and you'll be able to deal with it. Or you'll also be able to find out that you're not dealing with a properly qualified customer. You're not dealing with anybody who is most likely to buy or who was even interested in buying in the first place. And in my own opinion, that is also good as well. So it's nice to hear a yes, and it's also good when we get a quick no or a definitive no. Because when we run up against the quick or definitive no's, that means that we can save ourselves time running around the bush, follow up calls, follow up meetings, emails, all of that heartbreak, and just pay attention to other people who are going to buy or put more effort into looking to people who could buy in the future. So the whole point of qualification, for those of you who are just catching the podcast today and haven't listened to previous episodes, is to make sure that you're speaking to the right person who is going to buy and avoid talking to people who don't have a chance in heaven of doing business with you at all. So at the bottom line, these are some of the key skills that we need to learn when it comes to sales in the wedding industry. We need to, apart from qualifying, we also need to learn how to understand value, how to communicate value, and how to unearth our customer needs. A point of note though, value is one of those terms that means different things to different people, but I belong to the school that says value, excuse me, value is whatever it is that is important to the customer. So if you're one of those pragmatic type photographers, but you're dealing with somebody who wants a much more, how would I say, a much more sassy or sophisticated portrayal of the wedding, then that is the value there. The value is determined by the client, so it's not about you. So if you like to keep things uber practical, then maybe this is not your client, or you take the gig and try and upscale your shooting style on this particular one. But bottom line, value is not according to you. Value is according to what the customer wants, what the customer has in mind. So the same thing goes for you, wedding planners. If you're an understated wedding planner, but you run into a flamboyant client, you don't say, "Oh, the client doesn't understand the value." So you are an understated wedding planner. You like to keep things simple and sophisticated. That's the value you try to provide. But if you're running up against someone who is flamboyant and who wants everything loud and garish, then that's the value right there. You either can deliver or you can't. And having a qualifications process is what it is that is going to help you get to the bottom of the it's going to get to the bottom of the issue. So that's it for today. That's the what I think is the right perspective for dealing with rejection. If people say yes, that's all good. Let's go to the bank and let's get this job done. And not only get the job done, but make sure that we have a happy customer at the end of the day so we can get some referrals and some repeat business. If they say no, or if they avoid you, or if they ghost you, I think that's a failure in qualification. Start the whole process again, your question driven process, to be sure that you understood the want or the need, to be sure that your assumptions on budget were on tandem, and then try and work with whatever sense of urgency that you have there. And when you do that, you'll be able to get to the root of the problem and you'll know how to how to redress. In fact, the times that we're going through right now are a perfect example of what it is that I am saying. So for those of us who attended the bridal fairs in February and March earlier of this year, we ran up against a bunch of people who wanted to do weddings with us. But then what happened? COVID hit, and then some people start ghosting or stop answering phone calls or whatever. And my approach was basically the same. I kept running through the qualifications process with people, and eventually you'd be able to get to the root of the matter. So, with some brides, for instance, eventually you get through, you run through the whole process on the urgency end, and then you find out that timelines have shifted. We're now going to have this wedding in 2021. That's absolutely fine. So it's nothing to get all bent out of shape over, or to get angry, or to say these brides are unserious. You just simply pull up your calendar. Well, first of all, you have a or gentlewoman's agreement with the client that, okay, you guys are looking at 2021, so that means most likely you resume conversations again between the families, like when, December or January next year. And she says, oh, January is more like it. And then you put a note in your calendar for January, so that you know that that's the most appropriate time to follow up with her. Then, well, of course, you also put a note in December, so you can call and say happy Christmas and happy New Year and all of that. So, yeah, so exactly. So these things that we're going through, are the what we're going through with the COVID situation. That's a perfect example to show how these things apply. So if you have people that you met in January and February and everything looked like it was good, and for now they seem to be ghosting, run through the qualifications process. You might find out that the perceived need has changed, or we no longer want to have an 800 person wedding. We're just going to have a family breakfast. So because of that, we don't need a wedding planner. And if that's the case, maybe try and make a sale, make a push. But I think if it has changed and you don't have services that match something that's more like a family breakfast, I think you might as well just let it go. You can also find out that, as some of my friends have been finding out, money with sculptors events, it's found out that the because of the changed expectations, budgets have also been affected as well. But the one that I've been running up with personally is on the urgency end. There just isn't a sense of urgency about it anymore, because some people say, you know what, we want our family and our loved ones to be safe, so we're just going to let things hang for a while and see as it goes. And then there are a couple of people who come straight out and say, we're looking at 2021 for the wedding. So that's the proper way to deal with rejection. It's not about you. It's because there has been a failure of qualification. If we learn how to qualify, selling is going to be a whole lot more fun. Let's learn how to understand value, communicate value, unearth customer needs. And remember that value is not about you. Value is about that bride or that groom that you are speaking with. So thank you very much for listening. I will catch you guys on the next episode. And as usual, any questions, comments, or queries, you can hit me up on email. That's ayede.tave@gmail.com. AYEDE.TAVER@gmail.com. Or you can hit me up, phone call, WhatsApp, SMS, 08064662140. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Catch you guys again soon.